As the saying goes, with great power comes great responsibility. You know, the two sides of the same coin are authority and responsibility. We can't have authority for something for which we're not responsible. And we can't be held responsible for things over which we have no authority. But as elders, we will be held responsible for how we have led the sheep. We read that in Hebrews 13. We won't give an account for how the sheep have lived their lives. We will give an account for how well we've led the sheep and helped them live their lives. And that is an awesome responsibility. And when we are representing Jesus well, we actually carry a huge amount of authority as well, which we must hold lightly. Authority is not a big stick to beat people with. We should be those who carry out our authority gently and softly. But what I want to talk about specifically now in terms of that is that as we carry more authority, so our influence is greater, and so is the responsibility of ourselves in terms of how our actions will affect others. Think about it for a second. If somebody gets saved and they've been in the church a week and then they fall into sin, they fall into error, how much damage is that going to do to the church? It'll damage them. It may hurt you as the leader who's upset about where they're going. It may hurt a few people who they know, but it's not going to really hurt the church that much. Now imagine if an Andrew or a Will or somebody like that really fell into sin, unrepentant, or fell into into heresy. That would have the potential to destroy the whole church. We've seen that happen in churches around the world time and time and time again. And Satan knows this as well. And one of his strategies is to take out the shepherds, because as Jesus said, you strike the shepherd and the sheep will scatter. And so we need to understand that our influence over people is far greater as leaders and as elders than as individuals. Which is why it is imperative that those principles that can keep us safe, those principles that can keep us healthy, are applied even more the more authority we carry. You know, one of the dangers is that we can become pharisaical, that we can start preaching principles to people of what they should do, things like submission, things like accountability, and then we can fail to live up to that ourselves, not because we don't believe in it, and not because we haven't always practiced it, because somehow we've kind of climbed a ladder of responsibility. Not that it is a ladder, but I hope you understand what I'm saying. The longer we're saved, the more influence we have, the greater responsibility we're given. Doesn't mean that our need for submission reduces. Our need for submission increases. It doesn't mean our need for accountability decreases. Our accountability needs to increase, because the danger of us going wrong and the implications of us going wrong are so much greater. If a sheep disagrees with an eldership team, that you can deal with quite easily. If an elder has a violent disagreement with an eldership team, that can damage the church massively and prevent the church moving forward, or even tear a church in two eventually. And so the principles like submission and accountability need to increase in our lives rather than decrease. There's an old joke about a young Catholic child who says to his dad, "Dad, like when we go for confession, we confess to the priest, right? Who does the priest confess to?" And his dad said, "Well, the priest confesses to the bishop." "So who does the bishop confess to, Dad?" "Well, the bishop confesses to an archbishop." "And an archbishop, Dad?" "Oh, the archbishop confesses to a cardinal." And who does a cardinal confess to, Dad? Well, no, he confesses to the Pope. So, Dad, who does the Pope confess to? And the dad says, well, the Pope confesses directly to God. At which the son says, oh, so the Pope is a Protestant then? Silly joke, but it tells us something of the nature of man's thinking, where we tend to have this hierarchical thinking, that there's this hierarchy going up. And whilst there is a hierarchy in the kingdom, in terms of there's different levels of authority that we're given, it's not a hierarchy of value, it's not a hierarchy of role, and it's not even really a hierarchy of position as much as it is a hierarchy of function. The more authority you carry, the more influence you carry. It isn't the fewer people you need to be accountable to, it's the more people you need to be accountable to. And when it comes to, and this isn't a teaching on accountability, that's for another time, but one of the challenges that sometimes we fall into in our human systematic way of thinking is we can get into a thinking of I'm accountable to somebody above me and I'm accountable to a person. And I think as elders, I believe strongly as elders, we should be accountable to a group of people. We should be accountable to numerous people and not see it as a hierarchical thing, but see it as a relational thing. And not just to kind of dismiss the perspectives or dismiss the input of, or the potential input of those that may, in some senses, be seen as below us, and only look upwards. So, for example, as a lead elder of a congregation, are you accountable to your eldership team and to your deacon team, or do you see yourself only accountable to Andrew? That isn't biblical. It's not healthy. And within the context of how big as a church we are and how geographically spread we are, that's not even practical. And so I would encourage us to be mutually submissive, to be incredibly open and accountable to one another, be open books, and understand that we have been given great authority, great power in one sense. You know, I can't believe that the God of creation chooses to entrust his church to the likes of you and me. But he has done. But with that comes great responsibility. And I believe that we should walk our walk. We should exercise our gifts. We should fulfill the requirements of the office that God has called us to with a degree of fear and trepidation. I'm considered by many to be a teacher. You can judge that for yourselves based on these kind of videos. But the Bible, for example, says, not many of you should presume to be teachers, because you will be held doubly accountable. You'll be held accountable for your own life, and you'll be accountable for how you've led others and where you've taken them, and how they've absorbed what you've said. And as leaders, we will be held to account for how we've lived our lives and what we've broken open other people. Let's not keep things in the dark. Let's not be independent. Let's not be purely hierarchical and functional in our thinking of relationships, but let's be those who, for our own sake and for the sake of those we lead who see and follow our example, to be those who understand we need to be the most accountable, the most submissive, the most relational, the most spirit-led of all of us. Because if we go wrong, we all go wrong.